know we can fight. Content given every week. Me and yo, she mine. Keep on bringing the heat. Now they know that we hitting. And they know we ain't quitting. Yo, she mind the genius. Keep on bringing and giving. Unity, unity, unity. Cause they know we ain't stopping. And they know they got problems. And they ran out of options. If we know we got a problem, can't let it go unsolved. Brain baseline, Afrocentric history, we seen them all. Karma is karma. I say what I say, I hear the wall. Till I see y'all fall off, then I bring y'all up on back up on my Clyde winners. Clyde winners, 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 divine winners, Clyde winners, Clyde winners, Clyde winners. I'm with you, ride with you, master teacher, create master, Clyde winners. Give respect to the elder, Clyde winners. Hi, somebody looking for me. Yeah. So there's somebody out there looking for me. I think there's somebody out there looking for me. I think there's somebody out there looking for me. Yeah.
I'm not told lies. I'm not stolen food. I was not stolen. I'm not fornicating with the fornicator. I'm not caused anyone to weep. I'm not disabled. I'm not transgressed. I'm not discussed secrets. I have brought the lawsuit. I'm not wrong. I'm not sensitive. I'm not transgressed the law. I'm not defective. Except what I'm talking about on the show. I'm not made it stolen. I'm not brag. I'm not cursed. I'm not defiled. I'm not confounded truth. I'm not cursed to God.
Somebody out there looking for me. Somebody out there looking for me. I think there's somebody out there looking for me.
Dr. Winters has illustrated that Africans have been settling the New World and building new civilizations and cultures in the Americas and around the world for the past 100,000 years. Dr. Winters has published and written numerous anthropological, linguistics, education, and population genetics articles. Many of these articles have appeared in peer-reviewed journals and online. His work has appeared in the Journal of Black Studies, Afrohistory, Journal of African Civilization, Adolescence, International Review of Education, Thresholds in Education, TC Record, Bioessays, International Journal of Human Genetics, and PLOS Genetics, to name a few. He has published over 40 books, including Atlantis and Mexico, The Mande in the Ancient Americas, We Are Not Just Africans, and African Empires in Ancient America. For more of Dr. Clyde Winters, check out Yoshima Gumroad page, and that will lead you to the master himself, Dr. Clyde Winters.
What up, though? What up, though? What up, though? Hey, JP, what up? How you doing, young lady? You know, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful evening. It's a wonderful day. Jalen, Prasad, what up, though? Hey, family, that's right. You know, because, see, I'm very excited tonight because, you know, I wanted to talk to you guys. I know I usually do my Thursday thing, but I wanted to kind of talk to you tonight because the fact is that, you know, we have a very big problem. And what this problem is that we've been conditioned. Yes, sadly, we've been conditioned to feel that that everything that we know should come from university. You know, we always feel in the sense, how you doing, Karen Vincent? Happy Friday. Hold up. You know, we feel that that everything has to come from somebody who's university educated. And I'm not going to tell a lie. It's very, a university education can be appropriate. But sadly, any institution you go to, most of the time, that institution, you're not going to learn about you. Do you know that at many HBCUs, and that's historically, Black colleges and universities, do you know that at many of these HBCUs, some of them don't even teach Afro-American, history, you see. And so what we find in a sense is that many people, when they go to university, they don't really learn about themselves. They don't really know who we are. They don't know what we're about. And as a result, sometimes these people can lead us. How you doing, Rhonda Lewis? Sometimes, these people can lead us in a direction that can cause our decline. They can cause an emptiness, I remember when I went away to university, my mother said, I don't know, Clyde. She said, why you want to go away to college? All you do is get dumb when you go to college. And that's what she felt. She hadn't attended college. She was just the average sister, grew up in Mississippi, moved to Chicago, and tried to make sure, in a sense, that we try to get an education so we can maybe take advantage of this American dream. But, we're all wounded. We're very wounded. And we're wounded because, see, we grow up with this attitude, at least when I was growing up, today I was talking to my son, and he said, Pops, thank you for teaching us about the reality of critical race theory, teaching us that we're Black and that we must live a life and have to always be prepared to fight to be successful. But then I remember when I was growing up, my parents, they didn't really prepare me for life in the real world. I learned about life as many other people do in my generation. We learned about life by looking at TV. We learned about life by reading books. And so even though we knew, yes, our parents had told us that there was racism out there, our parents had told us that we should that there's pitfalls out there. But basically, when we went away, we felt, in a sense, that I believed in the American dream. Karen Van Zen, mom and dad should be teaching children at a young age. Ashe, she's absolutely correct. But they in a way they wanted you to be prepared, but they didn't want you to give up, and they didn't want you to think that everything was a big obstacle. So what you do is that back in the day, when you went away to college, or you went into the world of work, you automatically felt that if you just work hard, you felt that if you apply yourself, you felt that if you do everything that's required, to complete an education or do your best on a job, that you were going to get everything that the Europeans got, you see. And sadly, this was not right. No. Sadly, this was not right. Because of critical race theory, number one, white people hate you. Number two, white people want to kill you. Yes, I'm sorry to say. Number three, white people, in a sense, have established racism, which means that they've established a race in which they're in competition with Black people. And number four, they've established this race, but they made sure, due to white supremacy, that they're going to always win the race, that you're not going to be able to win, but you can participate and you can't possibly grow stronger. And see, this is very important to understand. But see, you don't learn that until later. Sometimes we learn too late. Yes. Sadly, sometimes we learn too late. And Karen is right. When I went away to school, my mom and dad, they didn't really talk about starting businesses and that we should be entrepreneurs. My mom and dad, their main thing is that, like Karen said, all our parents knew was to work, struggle, and stay in line. That's right. And what they did is that they wanted to make sure that we went to university, but they saw us going to university or college just to get a job. They didn't see it as a way to become enlightened. And see, that's the difference between us and other people. How you doing, DC Precise? Is that those other people, when they go to university, yes, they believe it's preparation, for a job, but it's also a place for them to get enlightenment. But what we did is that when we went away to school, we went to school basically, like Karen said, to get a job. We felt that we were going to get a job, and we felt that we would get a better job by the simple fact, in a sense, that we had got this education and we went to this university and we got the things that people wanted, And this is very important. It is so sad. And then today, at many universities, it's hard to even graduate. It's hard to graduate because sometimes they don't even have the courses available. JP says, I'm in my last semester of university and have never had a Black history course. It's not even offered. That's why this platform is so important. That's right. And thank you. And that's what it's all about. It's all about us trying, in a sense, to learn how to become and how to behave, And just think about this, JP. You don't even find a Black history class. You won't even find a class on Dravidian history. They always teach you about the Indo-Europeans, the Hindu. And see, there's a difference between Hinduism practiced among South Indians and the Hinduism practiced among North Indians, the Indo-Europeans. So it's very important to understand this. How you doing, Tilgay 41? But the thing is that, so what we're doing is, so what I want to talk about tonight is how you get to know yourself. Sadly, many people who are at university, many people who are teaching today, if you go to university and you try to take a course on Black sociology, I'm sorry to say this, Black anthropology, a lot of times it's very difficult to get anything out of it, and it's very difficult to get anything out of it because the fact, in a sense, is that many of the people that are writing these books today, they're not real Black scholars. Karen Benzin says we have to seek out Black scholars. That's true. We had to seek them out. But the problem is that where do you find them? And the reason that I say where do you find them is because the fact, in a sense, is that many of our Black scholars, they don't have the nerve to really want to teach about, Black people and themselves. They a lot of times, in a sense, they're afraid to really teach and to really teach about who and what we are, because see, many Black people, many foundational Black Americans don't understand is that white people do not get mad at you if you love your people. They love their people. Yes, white people love their people. Therefore, if they see that you love your people, they don't get mad at you. They don't feel that you're an enemy. But we feel, in a sense, because we don't really live around white people, we don't really communicate with them. We feel, in a sense, that all these white people, they'll be mad at you if you really know your history. They'll be mad at you if you really talk about what Black people have accomplished. Yes, you have these politicians like down in Florida and other parts of the United States where they're trying to attack Black history because they say that Black history hurts their children. But the point is that they're basically, in a sense, they're basically doing this because they see that as political theater. But sadly, many Black people, they refuse to really do research concerning themselves. And they refuse, in a sense, to know who and what we are and be able to translate that to our people, to our children, even to their students, you see. So what I wanted to do tonight is that I wanted to talk about how you can get a real understanding of foundational Black American culture. I want to talk about those books and those scholars that you can read to really put you on the right track. Sadly, when I went to university back in the 70s, we had a lot of Black scholars, in a sense, who really loved their people, really wanted us to know about our history and our culture. But these people, in a sense, we forced the universities to give us Black studies departments. Because we forced the universities to give us Black studies department, after a while, as these Black scholars got old and they retired, they were replaced by white professors, often by white professors who maybe had a degree in Black history or Black anthropology or Black studies. And so it's very difficult for you to, in a sense, understand what you can do. But tonight, I hope that many of you guys will be like Karen. And Karen has said what she's going to do tonight is that when I get on platforms like this, I take notes and names, then go research for myself and follow the person. True. That's a good thing to do. Tonight, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to talk to you about the real researchers. I'm going to talk to you about how to really understand our culture. So that's one of the reasons why most Black people, sadly, don't even understand that American culture is Black culture. They tell you that you don't have a culture, that your culture, in a sense, is being in the ghetto, gang banging, shooting and killing each other, unwed motherhood, all that type of stuff. Those are things that some people do, but that's not our culture. You see, our culture is what? Our culture is Southern cooking. And Southern cooking just so happens to be American cooking. Our culture is peach cobbler or apple pie. Yes. We did that first. You see, we did that first. The American music is not there. It's not European music, because when the Europeans came over here, instead of them wanting to develop their own music, they decided they were going to try to practice and carry on the classical. We even invent, the Black Europeans even invented that, but that's another story. But the thing is this: so what happened is that American music became foundation of Black Americans. Music, country music, gospel music, jazz, rock and roll, soul, hip hop, all these musical genres we invented, and that these in a sense were the music that America is known for. The greatest speakers of English, American speakers of English, they're not Europeans. They're Black people. And I know I say this all the time, and it's the truth. Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and the greatest and most beautiful speaker of the English language is James L. Jones. James L. Jones is bad when it comes to, in a sense, the English language, and Paul Robeson back in the day. And so then another part of our culture is being the inventors. We invented the toilet tissue. We invented the washing machine. We invented the air conditioner. We invented, in a sense, heating apparatus. We invented the street light. We invented the computer. We invented the cell phone. We're the ones, in a sense, who made it possible to use the internet that we're doing now. We're the ones who made it so that you can have a telephone. We're the ones that made the light bulb work. This is all our culture. But they teach you that you're culturalist. They teach you that you're historyless. And that's because the fact is that they want you to not see who you are. They want you to not see our accomplishments. And they want you not to know your history. Because, see, when you know your history, then you'll stop, in a sense, trying to be nationalistic. You'll stop just wanting to be maybe a Catholic or Protestant or Muslim or Moor or Hebrew or Yuchi or Yamasi or Cherokee. You'll just decide that you want to be what? Be one. Be one. Karen is so right. Be one, Black first. Be one, Black first. Be one, Black first. Why? Because it was us following these Europeans. Yes, it was us following these Europeans that led us to our downfall. But I'm going to get into this. I got a lot of slides, and this is going to be a long program. So we want to talk about this, so we're going to get started. So tonight we're talking about, the fact, in a sense, is that white racists. We're talking about the white racists, and what the white racists have done is that they've taught us a lie. The white supremacist institutions, they teach lies. Only Afrocentrism will teach you who you are. We walk down the path every day. We have a path where we can go down, in a sense, and we can go down on the left path. And on the left path, we can go to look at our great civilizations. We can look at our contributions. We can look, in a sense, to those things that have made us whole. Or we can take the right path. And the right path is a path that Europeans want us to only think about. They want us to only think about slavery. They want to think about how we were beaten, how we were abused. They want us to teach about, to learn about only being, subservient, only being, in a sense, subject to other people. They want us, in a sense, to take that right path, to study only and learn only about slavery, because they don't want you to feel that you have any agency. Yes, what does agency mean? Agency means that you have control over your life, and you also have control over the things that you want to learn, you see? And that's why we're here tonight, and that's what we're going to talk about, how we can fight this white supremacy. You can go to my Patreon to see the slides. Please join my Patreon. They're the ones, members of my Patreon, they're the ones that allow me to do this research. They allow me to do this research because they support my research. They give me good ideas. And some of my presentations are based upon themes that they've thought about themselves. So join my Patreon. I need your support. It's my Patreon members who provide me with the economic resources to buy new books so I can do good research. They help me to be able, in a sense, to get articles that are behind paywalls. And this takes money. Yes, research takes money, you see. And because of the fact that I have a good Patreon membership and that these young people are supporting me, and people are supporting me, that allows me to do this research. Right now, you're on my YouTube channel, Afrocentric History site. You know, here I have over 300 videos on every aspect of Black history. And these historical themes, in a sense, you know, are very important to us. So check them out. Come here, use my site as a site to learn. Use my site as a place to learn more information about who and what we are. You can order my books at Amazon.com. So, you know, buy a book or two. White supremacist institutions teach lies. Only Afrocentrism will teach you who you are. What is FBA? Okay, I'm an FBA, so let me talk about it. FBA is not a group. FBA is not an organization. FBA is a lineage. A lineage is lineal descent from an ancestor, ancestry, or pedigree. As a result, we are descendants of the African and Aboriginal Blacks who built the United States. Yes, yes. And also Black Europeans and Black Irish who were chattel slaves. But there's also another element. And like I was telling Dr. Short the other day, is that I want to write a book on the Black elites, because there's always been a strong Boule population. And this Boule population was originally, you know, mainly Black Europeans or you know, people who had been indentured servants, many Africans and others who had been indentured servants. And after they got once they had completed their indenture, they were able, in a sense, to start businesses. You know what I really hate is that, you know, often if you guys really research your ancestry, sometimes you're going to run into a brother who, in a sense, was a slave trader. Yes, sadly, I'm sorry to say, some of our ancestors were slave traders. And the reason that they were slave traders was that slave traders was when you could go to Africa and you could steal some people, you could buy some people and bring them back to the United States. That gave a lot of people a bag. Sadly, it gave them a bag. You know, you could go over there and you could buy, in a sense, you know, a sub-Saharan African person. You could buy them for a few dollars, and then you could bring them back to America. And, you know, you could sell them for $1,000, you know. So that was a lot of money. And so a lot of people, sadly, felt that they could get a boat. They get a boat, get a captain. They get the captain. They'd outfit the boat so they could put in some chains and put in other things to abuse these Black people as they came from Africa to the Americas. And then they would go run over there and they would try to buy some Black people and sell them over here. Yes. Stop shouting, Dr. Winters. I gotta shout. Why? Because. But a lot of times, in a sense, they would go and get these people and bring them back, and they would make thousands of dollars, and they could open up other businesses. And that was not right at all. And I wouldn't have never done that myself. But a lot of people, in a sense, because of the fact that they didn't have control over themselves, and they didn't really understand that the relationship between people, because see, people didn't see themselves as being united. Everybody saw themselves as different, you know. You see, in Africa, if a brother, in a sense, belonged to the Dahomey tribe, they felt any other tribal person, they could sell them as a slave. You see, and then over here, you know, if somebody belonged to the Cree tribe, and I was a Yamasi, then maybe I'll sell a Cree to the European. So the European has always been able to dominate us because the fact is that we refuse to be B1. B1 is being Black first. You got to be Black first to survive. B1 is acknowledging your Black African ancestry and mind, not heritage. We must be race men and women proud of our culture and African Black ancestry. B1, yes, B1. Black first. We have been taught a history of lies, a history where we are the victims of white racism. Yes. They make you believe, in a sense, is that the European has always dominated us. You know, some people even believe that Europeans have been ruling Black people for 2,000 years or for 500 years. This is all a lie. It's all bull. You see? But you won't notice unless you study your history, and that's why I'm here. I'm here, in a sense, to discuss with you our history. That's why I got a new research class coming up April 16th. And in this research class, I'm going to try to help other people to learn how to be great researchers, learn how, in a sense, to tell about our past, learn about our past, know how to talk about our past, know how to write books and articles, and spread knowledge to you, family, about who and what we are. As a rule, under white supremacy, history is whatever white people say it is. Even though archaeologists have found ancient artifacts of blacks, the white supremacists demand that you ignore what you can see with your own eyes and replace it with images they make up. White supremacy seeks to keep FBA economically and socially subservient to Caucasians. As a result, if one went to a white university or HBCU, the student who is educated in one of these institutions will view FBA as inferior to whites because the curriculum at these institutions fail to seriously teach the student the authentic history of foundational Black Americans. Yes, yes. When you go to these institutions, it's like you're under a black cloud. You're under a cloud in a sense of stormy weather. You're under a cloud in a sense that's going to leave you lost. And this cloud is like that, and we're not in a sense really being able to see the light except through the dark clouds, is because the fact in the sense is that we're not taught who and what we are. The tenets that form the foundation of a system that dehumanized African Americans and justified their enslavements came, in a sense, from the laws that the institutions made here. Central to white supremacist ideology before the Civil War was the belief in the natural inferiority of Black people and the natural superiority of white people. This belief was used to justify enslavement, asserting that African Americans were fundamentally suited for servitude under white domination. This hierarchy was often supported by pseudoscientific racism, religious justification, and cultural beliefs. By the early 19th century, some white supremacists had shifted from viewing slavery as a necessary evil to a positive good. Yes, yes, they thought that slavery was a good. This argument posits that slavery was beneficial for both enslaved African Americans, who were seen as being provided with civilization and Christianization, and the white slaveholders, who profited economically and maintained social order. Figures like John C. Calhoun famously defended slavery in these terms. White supremacists feared that the abolition of slavery and the establishment of racial equality would lead to social and economic chaos. This fear was often expressed through violent opposition to abolition movements, including mob violence against abolitionists and free Blacks, and laws that restricted the rights of free African Americans and forbade anti-slavery speech and literature. This is very important to understand. Many people don't understand is that they sometimes say, "Hey, what about the free Blacks?" There wasn't that many free Blacks. It wasn't that many free Blacks. When they talk in the literature about free colored people, they're not talking about formerly enslaved people. Free colored people was a term that they applied to the Indians, the Black Indians, once they took their land. Instead of, in a sense, respecting the Black Indians and acknowledging that they, in a sense, did have their own lands, that they did have their own nationality, once they were able, in a sense, to take away the land of various Black Indian groups, what they would do is that they would call them free colored people. Laws were a crucial tenet of maintaining white supremacy, including the Black Codes, which restricted the movement and behaviors of free Blacks. Slave codes, which defined the status of slaves and the rights of masters, and the Fugitive Slave Act, which required that escaped slaves be returned to their owners, even if they were found in free states. These laws institutionalized racial discrimination and ensured the continuation of slavery. The economic system of the South was heavily reliant on slave labor, particularly in the cotton and tobacco industries. White supremacy justified this economic exploitation as not only necessary for the economy, but also a civilizing influence on African Americans. Enslavement and racial control were enforced through systematic violence and intimidation. This included the use of corporal punishment on slaves, such as whipping and branding, as well as the threat of sale and separation from family. Lynchings and mob violence against African Americans who challenged the social order were not uncommon. True. And see, you have to understand that back in the day, when you went to a plantation, you see, when you visited a plantation back in the day, usually when you entered that plantation, they would have a head, severed head, a head that was cut off, and they would have it hanging from the entrance of the plantation, and that head would hang there until it rotted away. Then they would get another brother who didn't behave, and they would put their head up there. White supremacist ideology was perpetuated through cultural and intellectual means, including literature, science, and art, that depicted African Americans as inferior and suited to slavery. Religious justifications were also employed, and some using the Bible to argue that slavery was divinely ordained. Yes, yes, yes. That's what they wanted. They wanted to make sure, in a sense, that we felt that everything was not really for our benefit, that things, in a sense, was made so that we could always be subservient to the European. Central to white supremacist ideology is the belief in the inherent superiority of the white race over all other races, particularly African Americans. This belief has been used to justify slavery, segregation, and discriminatory practices, positing that African Americans are inherently less capable, intelligent, or human. Following the abolition of slavery, white supremacists sought to maintain racial separation and inequality through Jim Crow laws, which enforced segregation in public spaces, education, and employment. The ideology supported the notion that races should remain separate to maintain the purity and superiority of the white race. From slavery, where foundational Black Americans were literally owned and their labor exploited for economic gain, to practices like sharecropping and racially discriminatory labor practices during the Jim Crow era, and beyond, white supremacy has economically marginalized foundational Black Americans. I used to, when my mom and dad, I used to ask them, why did they come up? Why did they come to Chicago? And they made it clear that, they knew that Chicago was a lot of racism. They knew that in Chicago, in a sense, that white people there were just as evil and cruel as white people in the South. But they came up north because they felt, in a sense, that they can make more money. And it's all about the cash, isn't it? It's all about the Benjamin. White supremacists have historically sought to exclude African Americans from the political process through methods such as poll taxes, literacy tests, and violent intimidation. The goal has been to maintain political and social dominance by ensuring that African Americans remain powerless within the political system. Violence has been a consistent tool of white supremacists to instill fear and maintain racial hierarchies. This includes lynching, racial terrorism by groups like the Ku Klux Klan, and police brutality targeted disproportionately at African Americans. Yes, yes, yes. Whilst white supremacist ideology has perpetuated negative stereotypes of African Americans to justify discriminatory treatment and to reinforce notions of white superiority. This has included portraying African Americans as lazy, criminally inclined, or intellectually inferior. White supremacy has consistently opposed efforts to achieve racial equality from the Reconstruction era through the Civil Rights Movement and into contemporary opposition to movements like Black Lives Matter, open housing. This opposition is rooted in the desire to maintain the social, economic, and political privileges afforded to whites. Yes, yes, yes. It's all about, in a sense, white supremacy. It's all about ensuring that white people will never have any competition from Black people, that white people will always be able to control America, control the world, you see. Part of white supremacist ideology involves rewriting or distorting historical negatives to glorify the Confederacy, minimize the horrors of slavery, and downplay the systematic racism and injustices that foundational Black Americans have faced. This includes efforts to promote the lost cause narrative or to challenge the historical consensus on the civil rights movement. Yes, yes, yes. A lot of times we feel that if only, in a sense, we had some support from white people, things would be much better. We're always, in a sense, some of us are always trying to find some of those allies, some of those so-called brown or white allies. But Chancellor Williams in Destruction of the Black Civilization has noted that blacks can never have intellectual freedom because of white supremacist efforts to control African intellectuals. He wrote that, and I quote, "The outcome and indeed the whole future of the race depends upon the extent to which we have become intellectually emancipated and decockinized enough to pioneer an original thinking." Yes, we have to be original thinkers. We can't always just follow what the crowd will. We can't follow what the Europeans want us. We have to, in a sense, study and know who we are. W.E.B. Du Bois believes that white liberals fear black unity and racial pride because no sooner, quote, "no sooner do whites see this unwanted development, African-American racial pride, than they point out in dismay the inevitable consequences. You lose our tutelage. You spurn our knowledge. You need our wealth and technique." They point out how fine is the world role of Europeans, the elder brother. Yes. This is what W.E.B. Du Bois wrote. And even if you sometimes find white liberals, they pretend that they really support us. They pretend that they're in favor of our rights and our success. But in reality, in a sense, they rarely go out of their way to really promote, foundational Black Americans, to help them on the job, or to help them, in a sense, to really become great business people, because they see you as competition. And they feel if they give you any type of support, that you're going to outshine them. And this has been shown historically. I already told you about all the great inventions that we've made. You can see how if we play tennis, golf, football, basketball, any field in which there's no restrictions, any fields in which they allow us to shine, we dominate. And that could be the same thing in education. That could be the same thing in a sense, and we've already proven in science that we're just as good or better than Europeans. But the point is this, is that they still have to maintain, this control over us, because they have to make you feel inferior and to make you feel that you can't do anything, that you can't accomplish. And so therefore we can't count on liberals to support us. Some FBA believe that the actions of liberal whites correspond with those that are different from white supremacists. This view challenges the notion that good intentions or self-justification as an ally are sufficient to dismantle systemic racism. Some FBA use certain actions by liberal whites as performative allyship, where support for racial justice is expressed more for social validation or to alleviate personal guilt than for genuine commitment to change. When the support does not translate into meaningful action or systemic change, it can be seen as insincere. Yes. A lot of times we feel that much of the so-called support from white liberals is insincere. They don't really feel it. We don't really feel that they want to see us become successful, even among those who intellectually reject racism. Unconscious bias and the perpetuation of racial microaggressions can occur. These subtle forms of racism can be openly hurtful and alienating, suggesting that despite liberal ideals, underlying prejudices remain. Yes. A lot of times, in a sense, these white people may want to be liberal. They may want to be supported, but they have underlying prejudice. I know some of you get mad when I say that a white person can't love you, but it's very difficult for a white man or a white woman to love a Black person. And the reason that it's difficult for them to love you, is because they can't respect you. And a lot of love comes from respect. You have to respect your man. You have to respect your woman. But most white people cannot respect you because they've been taught since knee high that they're better than you. They've been taught since knee high that you're inferior to them. They've been taught since knee high that they have to do everything to keep you down. So how can they love you? A criticism is that liberal whites may support racial equality in theory, but resist or avoid the deep structural changes necessary to achieve it, especially if those changes threaten their own social or economic status. This includes resistance to policies that address economic disparities, education inequality, and criminal justice reform. When I first went to university, and I thought in a sense that everything was copacetic, everything was equal. You know, I thought that, hey, you if you just work hard, you could be as successful as other people. But then, you know, I had some professors who wanted to give me a lower grade just because I was black, you know. I even had one professor when I was a freshman said, due to your socioeconomic status, I'm gonna give you a C. And my fist almost hit him in the face. But the point is this, I stopped myself, you see, because see, often they just don't care because they don't want any competition. You know, when I was teaching at a Governor State University, and I had taught at Governor State University for just about 11 years, 10 and a half, 11 years. And so then when I first started teaching at university, I'm sad to say, but I really thought that at university that they, you know, they like black women and they would give black women more opportunity than black men. That's what I thought. But then when I started teaching, I started seeing that the black men and the white females, they would do everything they could to keep black women from getting tenure. Yes, you know, when you're hired as an assistant professor at a university, you have 7 years to get tenure. And then to get tenure, or to be able, in a sense, to remain as part of the faculty, the rest of the faculty in your department, they have to vote for you to get tenure. And when you get tenure, it's kind of hard to fire you, you know. And so then, and I found that a lot of times they would do all type of silly mess to hold sisters up, you know, keep sisters back from becoming, you know, associate professors and stuff like that. I was just a lecturer, and I was still teaching in Chicago public schools, even though I taught three courses a semester. I made nice money, but I was a lecturer. I wasn't really an assistant professor, so you know, I didn't have to really worry about trying to attain tenure. But you'll be surprised the racism and the discrimination and prejudice that many females, you know, suffer when they try to become professors. Some African Americans feel that liberal whites, while claiming to support racial justice, may engage in paternalistic behavior or speak over black voices, suggesting an underlying belief in their own superiority or in the inability of black people to advocate for themselves. The historical context of white allies' participation in the civil rights movement and other racial justice efforts include instances where support was conditional or withdrawn when the movement's goals became more radical or threatened the existing social order. This history can lead to skepticism about the depth and durability of liberal white support. Yes. That's why as many black people began, in a sense, to seek out in a sense jobs, to want to get the same jobs that many of their so-called white friends or white people had, then, you know, everything got slick. Everything became much more desperate because they didn't really, in a sense, want to share that. They didn't want to have that competition. That is why we have, in a sense, you know, white supremacy. White supremacy is meant to protect, you know, whites from having any type of competition from black people. Economic practices that disproportionately benefit whites, including those who identify as liberal, such as gentrification, can contribute to the displacement and further marginalization of foundational Black American communities. This economic dynamic reinforces perceptions of racism among liberal whites. Yes. You can't always count on liberal whites to give you support. A reluctance among some liberal whites to fully acknowledge and address their own racial privilege and how it perpetuates inequality is seen as a form of complicity with the racist system they claim to oppose. Yes. And so that's why, in a sense, it's very difficult for black people, in a sense, to really understand, because most of the time when we go out into this world, we go away to university and we just graduate from high school. In most cases, we really don't understand the systemic racism that exists in this country. Usually when we graduate from high school, we feel that you know, the sky's the limit. If we just work hard, if we just do everything that's required of us, we're going to get success. But sadly, in a sense, you know, they're not going to promote you. A lot of times you're not going to gain real equality. And most of all, in a sense, because of the whole idea that whites feel that they're the supremacists, that they feel they're better than us, it's very difficult for you to really get things unless you struggle and you fight hard for those things. On liberals and black racial pride, Harold Cruz in The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual noted that, and I quote, "So strategic in the do-gooders complex has become laden with paternalism. Yes, yes, yes. Due to this sense of paternalism among many white liberals, James Baldwin expressed skepticism and criticism towards white liberals for what he saw as their superficial commitment to racial equality and their failure to confront the deeper structural and personal dimensions of racism. In his famous work, The Fire Next Time, and other writings, Baldwin challenged white liberals to confront their own unconscious biases and to undertake a more profound, personal examination of how they perpetuate racial injustice. He argued that true allyship required more than just passive support or intellectual agreement with the principles of equality. It demanded active engagement, a willingness to listen and learn from the experiences of Black people, and a commitment to tangible actions that address racial inequalities. Yes, yes, yes. You have to have, in a sense, a relationship between Blacks and whites that is a full relationship in which you can share ideas and really promote the success of both groups. But when you have a one-sided, relationship, a relationship in which you're supposed to be subservient to the other, it's very difficult. Baldwin's perspective serves as a call to examine the depth and sincerity of one's commitment to racial justice and to engage in the ongoing work of dismantling racism at both personal and systemic levels. Foundational Black American scholars have met the standards of scholarship for almost 200 years, supporting the roles of Blacks in ancient history, modern history, and history in general. During this period, Eurocentric researchers have attempted to white out Blacks from history. Here I provide a detailed explanation of how to use the genetic model to study ancient African and Black civilizations. These men and women provided scholarship based on contemporary archaeological and historical research. A lot of times, people tell you, "Oh, why are you using these old books? Why are you referring back to these old research?" But people forget that when these people wrote those books in the 1900s, wrote those books in the 1800s, wrote those books in the 20th century, these people, in a sense, used the latest research. The latest research. They didn't base their stuff on supposition. They didn't base their research on just having an opinion. They used the latest research. The African Black origination of civilization throughout the world. These Afro-American scholars, mostly trained at Harvard University, yes, one of the few universities that admitted Blacks in the 19th century, provide the scientific basis, the global role played by African people in civilizing the world. The Afrocentrism proponents include J. Rogers, W. Du Bois, Sheikh Anta Diop, John G. Jackson, George W. Parker. Afrocentrism is based on the study of Blacks throughout the world. The methods used to study Afrocentrism are anthropology, archaeology, history, and linguistics. J. Rogers and J. G. Jackson were masters of anthropological knowledge about Black people. W. Du Bois was the founder of the field of Afrocentric ancient studies of history, and Sheikh Anta Diop used linguistics and anthropology to study the African past, as did G.W. Parker in relation to Blacks in Greece. Yes. Back in the day when I began to do my research, I really didn't have anybody I could go to. There wasn't any real Afrocentric researcher. We had a brother in Chicago back in the day. He was called Hammurabi, and he used to kind of do what J. Rogers had done. He would make these newspapers, and then these newspapers, it would be newspaper articles about the various, Black African people. But you didn't have anybody, even at university. We had some Black professors. We had a Black political scientist when I was at the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, and we had another brother, who had dealt, and we had some Africans dealing with African social science and stuff like that. But we didn't really have anybody that you could go to and learn how to do the research. So I had to learn how to do the research by looking at how John Jackson, J. Rogers, Sheikh Anta Diop, and other people. But one of the greatest advocates back in the day, in terms of how to study our history, was Dr. Amos N. Wilson. And Dr. Wilson, I think he came from Mississippi, and he was a great educational psychologist. And Amos Wilson, in The Falsification of African Consciousness, he made it clear that knowing your history will reinvigorate your mind and spirit. To Wilson, we should see history as psychohistory, since the aim of writing Black people out of history is to destroy any sense of intellectual or social self-esteem for African people. Wilson noted that, and I quote, in the final analysis, European history's principal function is to first separate us from ourselves and separate us from the reality of the world, to separate us from the reality of our history and to separate us from its ramifications. This is very important. See, if you notice, they're always concerned about what do foundational Black Americans do. They spend all their time trying to be in our pockets, trying to be in whatever we want to do, you know. And I mean, look at this. You know, today we're demanding reparations, and then you got people from Canada to even England talking about why should we get reparations? Just people are always in our business. Why? Because they're always afraid that if we really got reparations, you see, then what will we do with it? Yes, sure. I'm not going to tell a lie. I don't even wear Nikes. But when I get my reparations check, the first thing I'm going to do is contact Amazon and order me a pair of Jordans. Yes. You know, because the thing is, this is that. But see, they're afraid. They're afraid that we're going to do the next thing I do. After I order a pair of Nikes, then I'm going to buy some stock. I'm going to buy some land. You know, well, maybe buy my kids a house, or most of them are buying their own houses. Well, the thing, I'm going to use my money to make some money and start businesses. And that's what they're afraid of. They don't want you to get those reparations and use that money for the benefit of yourself and your families. No. Michael Parenti, in History as Mystery, he believes that history is not neutral. In his opinion, history is written by the ruling class to solidify their position. See, that's what they want to do. You see, he observed that much written history is an ideologically safe commodity. It might best be called mainstream history, or orthodox history, conventional history, and even ruling class history, because it represents the dominant perspective of affluent people over the major institutions of society. Yes, that's what they want you to learn. But see, when you come every Thursday to listen to me talk about various historical themes, I'm not talking about mainstream history. I'm not talking about, in a sense, ruling class history. I'm talking about our history as foundational Black Americans. I'm talking about our history as Black people in India, Black people in China, Black people all over the world, Black people in Africa. They don't want you to do that. They don't want you to have agency. They don't want you to know what you can do, because, see, people say, why, Dr. Winters, do you spend all your time talking about ancient history? We don't know. I'm going to tell you why. See, when you know ancient history, when you know what we've done, it shows what you can do, and it shows your potential. See, when you know what you've done, then you know that that's not impossible for you to do again. You see, because we have access to the Akashic records. You see, the first anatomically modern human beings, they say in Africa, go back to what, 200,000, 300,000. They're always changing the times. But that means, in a sense, family, that you have over at least 200,000 years of knowledge. See? And if you can be inspired through some of the stuff that I talk about every Thursday, if you can be inspired by joining my research class, then you're going to have access to thousands of years of knowledge that are going to make you a superior researcher, going to make you a superior scientist, going to make you a superior teacher, because you have access to that Akashic record based upon what I call a genetic memory. What I mean by genetic memory is that just like your cell tells you that you should have an arm, 2 arms, 2 legs, how they work and manufacture, you also have memories that go back thousands and thousands of years. It's just gaining access to those memories. Black history matters. It is why both Eurocentric and so-called liberal historians will usually agree that Blacks like any type of ancient history or association with Egyptian history. They agree because both groups do not believe that Blacks have an ancient history due to their absorption of consensus history. that deny any role of blacks in ancient history except as Ethiopian or Nubian slaves or American slaves. You see, that's what they want you to always think about. What is learning? Learning is the acquisition of knowledge or skill through experience, study, or by being taught. It is the unconscious integration of human experience, generally or learned. It is the practice and repetition of experiences over time. Yes. That is what learning is all about. You see, Black history matters. History situates your place in society. History tells you who you are. History promotes or discourages self-esteem. Yes, when you know who you are, you can fight CAIDS. And what is CAIDS? Culturally acquired identity immune deficiency syndrome. And when you catch CAIDS, you lose your sense of identity. You lose your immunity to whiteness, and you begin to feel inferior. But when you know your history, in a sense, you can fight CAIDS, culturally acquired identity immune deficiency syndrome, because you do know who you are. You do develop the self-esteem. You do develop that competitive spirit that can help you to go out in the world and do everything you can to be all that you can be and be the best. The FBA that knows their history cultivates self-esteem and is motivated to seek success. They look like this, baby. They just get so excited because they know who they are, what they can do, and what they've done in the past. 2021 U.S. election shows whites feel knowledge of Black history promotes white inferiority. Whites feel this idea is supported by critical race theory, which maintains that white supremacy is a fixture of American society. Whites feel that teaching Black history to white children causes internal mental conflicts because white children learn Blacks do have a great history and whites are not superior to FBAs and Blacks generally. Yes. So the real threat is that when that white child is always facing the crossroads. That white child on the right, he can go down that side that's colorful, that side of beauty, that side of being, in a sense, a whole person by following that right-hand path. But see, to do that, in a sense, that means that they have to accept people for who and what they are. They have to be able, in a sense, to understand that we're all one and that there should be equality for all people. But no, instead, they want their children to go down that dark path. They want them to go on the left-hand side. They want them to be in darkness because they want to feel, in the senses, that by keeping them ignorant of our history, by keeping them ignorant of who Black people were, then that means, in a sense, that they will grow up feeling that white people are superior, and that as long as they keep Black people down, that they can, in a sense, always maintain their superiority. But see, the white child is at a crossroads. But white people don't care about their children really knowing the truth. They don't care about their children being, in a sense, aware. That means, in a sense, that when these kids do get older, when they do learn about the Black history, and they do learn about all of our great contributions to the United States, and that we're the foundation of America, it breaks them down. It causes problems, you see. But if they told the truth, maybe things wouldn't be so bad, Afrocentric scholars and heroes use anthropological, historical, linguistic, and ethnographic research, which is a qualitative method where researchers observe Black people from a historical perspective. These Afrocentric scholars, they identify a problem, they construct the research question, they locate the sources, they review and determine the relevance of the sources, then they summarize the sources and try to organize them into in a sense, a purposeful behaviors, you see. They place it on an index card, they copy and patch quotes or summarize statements in their own words, and then they use this stuff to write papers. They use this stuff to write books. That's one of the things that when you take my research class, you're going to learn how to do these things. When you take my research class, it's 15 weeks. And during this 15-week period, that means that you're going to have 30 hours of instruction and hands-on activities that help you to learn how to be not only a great researcher, but also, in a sense, to be a great writer. You see, you have to understand that the Afrocentric researcher, they've always been making scientific inquiries. They use the ancient model for the early history of Blacks, and the ancient model, in a sense, was a model that was developed by the Greeks and stuff. The foundation of any mature science is its articulation in authoritative text. The Africological textbooks published by Hopkins, 1905, Perry, 1893, and Williams, 1893, provide the vocabulary themes for further Afrocentric social science research. You see, like for example, when I was in back in 1969, when I took Afro American history, the book was written by a Black person because we were the only ones interested in our history back then. Let's let's kind of take a break now, and I'm going to share with you some commercials. How you doing, Juan Souza? Juan Souza, we're going to have to get you out of here. See you. Why do you keep coming in here just to stir up trouble? But again, let's get some. How you doing, Lindy? Zachary Holmes? What up, though? You see, but I'd like you guys to consider some of this stuff. For example, we're going to be teaching a British history class soon. You may want to check it out. Hi, family. Join us in our new Revealing Hidden Chapters of British Black History 6-week course, Part 2. The instructors are Dr. Clyde Winters and Sister Shanice. Join this important class. Learn more about British history. Learn about how it was Blacks who were the first people to live in Britain. These Black people, in a sense, were there. Join us the 29th of April. Unlike the hidden chapters of British African History Part 2, dive into your own investigative Black history course with Sister Shanice and Dr. Clyde Winters. Yes, it's time you join us. You join us and you're going to learn so much about the Black British, the Baradanacs, the people who ruled Britain for thousands of years. You can register at https://sistersshanice.gumroad.com/L/HQXUS. This is a 6-week British course. You're going to learn about when Britain was African, the African Bronze Age, the African Anglo-Saxons, the Celts, the Black Vikings. All of this you're going to learn. Join this course. It starts Monday, the 29th of April, and it's going to last until the 3rd of June, 2024. Study fees for this course is £199. Yes, only £199. But if you join before April, it's only £149. Join us. Come and join this class. This class will be from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. London time. In America, that'll be 1:30 p.m. Join us for this new Black British history course. Learn, join us. Register for this class at https://sistersshanice.gumroad.com/L/HQXUS. Yes, join us to this important Black history class. This Black history class that will teach you everything you need to know about Black British history. Fine book and it can help you learn a lot about the history of Blacks in Europe. Today is today. We need to homeschool our children due to white supremacy. In many states, education departments are passing laws to deny our children from learning the history of foundational Black Americans. Today, you can learn how to organize and teach your children in a homeschool in my book, A Guide to Homeschool Foundational Black Americans. You can use my book, History of Blacks in America from Prehistory to 1877, to teach our children their history here in the United States. You can use my book to teach world history. And this book I've written is called The World History of the Black World. This will teach your children about every Black civilization in the world. Get this book. The time is now. Get these books to teach your children about their greatness, to prevent them from losing confidence in their own ability to learn and be successful future adults in employment and education.
So dreamy.
Hey, I've just written a new book, History and Culture of the Black Aboriginals of America. Yes, I've written a new book. This book is called History and Culture of Afro-Americans. It's about the Aboriginal Americans. It's about the first people who inhabited America. Many people don't know about our great culture, this super culture that we created, but I discuss this book. In 489 pages, you'll find out so much information, great information, about, in a sense, what the Aboriginal foundational Black Americans did. You're going to see, in a sense, that Black people contributed much here. When the first Europeans got here, that's what they found. Yes, they found Black Aboriginals inhabiting the Americas. It was the Black Aboriginals that built this country. This is why you had to get my book. Get my book, History and Culture of the Aboriginal Blacks of the Americas. In this book, you will find out the truth. You will know what we created. You will know who we are. Get this book. Buy it now. Hey, it's time for the Afrocentric. Hey, it's time for the Afrocentric Researcher course led by Dr. Clyde Winters. Join this course. The 15-week Afrocentric Researcher course will begin on April 16, 2024. It will last between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can go to clyde98.gumroad.com/L/ to join the class. The Afrocentric Researcher course is vital. In this course, you will learn how to do research. It will help you to write and conduct research. You see, you're going to learn how to do research. You're going to learn how to interpret research literature. And you're going to learn how to write books and articles. Yes, books and articles. And you're going to learn how to use research data to improve your small business. Already, in a sense, many former students have begun to write articles and books that they published. You too can write these articles and books after you take my class. You can make a single payment of $599. You can go to clyde98.gumroad.com/L/ZBWRJR, or you can make monthly payments. Go to clyde98.gumroad. Join me for my 15-week Afrocentric Researcher course. It's going to be the class that's going to help you to really be a success. It's going to start April 16, 2024, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Join us. Join us in this class. Learn how to do research. It's up to you. Okay, I hope that you'll take advantage, of maybe the homeschooling course. Homeschooling, get the book, get some ideas, because we do need to start teaching our kids their history, and this book will help you to do this. You can maybe join one of my classes. Again, the British history class we had, part one was real good. We had a lot of students. Sometimes we would talk we would start at 7:30, 9:30, but we might end up talking all the way to 12. 12 a.m. London time, because a lot of people enjoyed that class. And of course, consider taking my research class. If you're really serious about wanting to do the research, take my class. But I do want you to be serious if you do take the class, because it's to help you to become a great researcher. And that's the most important thing, in a sense. It's about learning how to do research, learning how to make your business, or learning how to be able, in a sense, to tell those stories that you want to tell about our people and get that out there. Okay, the Afrocentric scholar heroes are qualitative researchers. The research of Afrocentric, qualitative researchers involves collecting and analyzing texts. They used an ethnographic research method to conduct their research. The Afrocentric scholar heroes wrote history to explain the experiences of Black and African people throughout the world through what's called falsification. Falsification is the action of falsifying information or theory. The Afrocentric scholar heroes use falsification to produce depth, insights into the history of Blacks and African people to generate new ideas about who Black and African people are in relation to world history. In science, a theory must be falsifiable. The philosophy of science maintains that a theory is falsifiable if it is contradicted by an observation and an empirical interpretation. Okay, for example, if you notice, they've been talking about evolution for almost 200 years. And even though they've been talking about evolution for over 200 years, they still call the idea of evolution a theory of evolution. The reason they call it the theory of evolution is that there's no way to test evolution, you see. There's no way to test evolution. There's no way to prove that evolution really existed. Why? If we suppose if some sea creature supposed to, in a sense, crawled out of the ocean, came up on land, became a reptile, then later became a mammal, then later became a monkey, then later became a human being, we can't see that, or we would still have to see that today, because there's no way to really test the theory of evolution. Then therefore, in a sense, it remains a theory, because there's no way, because science is based upon experimentation. There's no experiment that you can make, in a sense, that can falsify or confirm the theory of evolution. That's why it's still a theory. But we, in a sense, those are Afrocentric, scholar heroes, they did, in a sense, scientific research, and they did research, in a sense, that could be proven to be, that could be confirmed as being valid, or it could be, in a sense, invalid. But see, science is based upon, in a sense, a search for knowledge. Science is based upon experimentation and testing. For example, the Eurocentric statement, the history of FBA and Blacks generally, is primarily the history of slavery, due to the lack of an ancient history of the Blacks, because they were isolated on the African continent for thousands of years. This is falsifiable. And we know it's falsifiable because we know that there were Blacks that founded Egypt. We know there were Blacks that founded Sumer. We know that the Moors invaded Europe, and they ruled Europe from 711 AD, much of Europe, from 711 AD all the way up until 1492 in Spain and Portugal. So this is easily falsifiable. And that's why, in a sense, you can do historical research based upon what and who Black people are, when, in a sense, you look at it from a scientific perspective. Afrocentrism is a social science. To understand this science, we have to look at the structure of Afrocentric paradigms. To study Afrocentric social science, we look at Thomas Samuel Kuhn's in his book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. For Kuhn, scientific revolution involved paradigm shifts and punctuated periods of stasis or normal science. We will now look at the series and phases that constitute the normal Afrocentric social science. One of the things that we were able to do this and to show evidence of ancient Black civilization was, one, the artifacts depicting Blacks found at ancient sites, recovered through archaeological excavation, the confirmation of the validity of the classical and Old Testament references to Blacks as founders of civilization in Africa and Asia, and three, the presence of isolated pockets of Blacks existing outside Africa, and four, that the contemporary Arab people in modern Egypt are not the descendants of the ancient Egyptians. Right. When you look at these perspectives, when you look at this evidence of ancient civilizations, you can see that you can, in a sense, falsify any theory that says that the foundation of Black Americans or Black people generally don't have a history. What is the exact relation? So what we want to do is you have certain paradigms that have to be understood. What is the exact relationship of ancient Egypt to Blacks in other parts of Africa? Number two, how and when did Blacks settle America, Asia, and Europe? Three, what are the contributions of the Blacks to the rise and cultural expressions, ancient Black African civilizations? Four, did Africans settle parts of America in ancient times? JP, she's written a very good book on Southeast Asian civilizations. And in a way, she's practiced these Afrocentric paradigms, because what she was trying to do is that she was trying to show how Blacks settled, in a sense, Southeast Asia, and the culture and civilization that existed there in ancient times. So JP is practicing these paradigms that allow us to look at the history of Black people around the world. In short, science centers on conjecture and refutation. Given 200 years of research in Afrocentrism, our job is to confirm the research into the role of Blacks in ancient history, uncovered by the giants in Afrocentric social sciences discussed below. You see, for example, Asante says that there are 5 characteristics of Afrocentricity. There's a difference between Afrocentricity and Afrocentrism. And Afrocentricity is number one, an intense interest in psychological location as determined by symbols, motifs, rituals, and signs. Number 2, a commitment to finding the subject place of Africans in any social, political, economic, architectural, literary, or religious phenomenon with implications for questions of sex, gender, and class. 3, a defense of African cultural elements as historically valid in the context of art, music, education, science, and literature. Number 4, Afrocentricity is a celebration of centeredness and agency and a commitment to lexical refinement that eliminate pejorative about Africans or other peoples. 5, Afrocentricity is a powerful imperative from historical sources to revise the collective history text of Africa. This is what Afrocentricity is. But the mission of Afrocentrism is different. Yes. As an Afrocentrist, you're not looking for everything to have, in a sense, any Afrocentricity. You're looking, in a sense, at world history based upon, in a sense, that there were Black people here, there were Black people there. The mission of Afrocentrism is to use anthropology, history, and linguistics to ensure adherence to principles and theories related to the idea that African and world history originated on the African continent and moved outward from Africa through the human agency of Africans speaking related languages and practicing a shared culture, who founded the first civilizations of Africa, the Americas, Europe, and Asia. The study of artifacts discovered through archaeological excavation in Egypt and Mesopotamia and skeletal remains were used by Hansberry, Du Bois, and J. Rogers. These researchers took this information to elaborate our understanding about the culture and history of the Blacks who founded civilization. John G. Jackson in Man, God, and Civilization provides the most detailed use of archaeological findings to explain and discuss details about ancient civilizations founded by Black people. J. Rogers in Sex and Race, C.A. Sheikh Anta Diop, and W.E.B. Du Bois in The World in Africa, and in Du Bois's book, The Negro, used historical methods to make it clear that Blacks do have a history. And Théophile Obenga and Sheikh Anta Diop, une nouvelle recherche sur l'Égyptien et les langues négro-africaines modernes, un parenthèse génétique de l'Égyptien pharaonique as the langues négro-africaines, use regular historical and comparative linguistic methods to explain the ancient connections between contemporary African groups and ancient Black culture bearers like the Egyptians. Yes, they showed these connections. And these connections indicated that many of the people that lived in West Africa today and people who live in East Africa, in a sense, belong to the ancient Egyptian civilization. They belong to Kemet. And the reason that Kemet, in a sense, had all these people there was based upon the fact that the people who lived in Kemet, in a sense, Kemet was a Pan-African civilization. It was a Pan-African civilization because each Sipat or Nome, that means the various states that made up ancient Egypt, Kemet, that each one of these states had people who spoke different languages, who believed in different gods. And as you know, if you study Egyptian history, you find that at different cities, there were different gods being worshipped. And what this meant, in a sense, is that, yes, they did have a concept of a major god, which was either Ra or, in a sense, Amun. So, in a sense, so the Egyptian language, the reason that we can find a relationship between Meta Nature and various African languages spoken in West Africa, Central Africa, and East Africa is based upon the fact, in a sense, that there were different people that lived in Kemet, and because Kemet was a Pan-African civilization, Meta Nature was a lingua franca. It was a lingua franca that the people used that spoke different languages in the different nomes or sepats, you see, that allowed them, in a sense, to have a single means of communication. J. Rogers used ethnography to confirm the history History of Blacks in the Ancient World. Rogers, Sex, and Race is the best example of the use of ethnographic methods to explore the role of Blacks in ancient times. Linguistic research to confirm the ancient history of Blacks has only recently been used in Afrocentric research. The first person to use linguistic methods to explore the ancient history of Blacks was George Wells Parker. Parker used anthropological, archaeological, historical, and classical sources to prove that Blacks once lived in the Aegean. After Parker, Syed Diop began the use of anthropological evidence and linguistics to confirm the two major paradigms associated with the study of ancient Afrocentric history. Diop's work has been concerned with confirming the African origin of Egyptian civilization. There are many followers of this tradition in French-speaking West Africa. The leading researcher in this field is Theophile Obinga. Classic. The classics were used to study foundational Black American ancient history. These Afrocentric social scientists used the classics to prove that the Blacks founded civilization in Egypt, Ethiopia, Babylon, and Nineveh. Cornish and Rushworm made it clear that archaeological research supported the classical or ancient model of history. Edward Blyden also used classical sources to discuss the ancient history of African people. In his work, he not only discussed the evidence for Blacks in West Asia and Egypt, he also discussed the role of Blacks in ancient America. Yes, Blyden was ahead of his time. The foundation of any mature science is articulation in an authoritative text. What I mean by an authoritative text is that these are texts in the sense that other Black people would use to study the history of foundational Black Americans. The Africological textbooks by Hopkins, 1905, Perry, 1993, and Williams, 1883, provide the vocabulary themes for further Afrocentric social science research. Yes, these scholars, in a sense, left us texts that gave us a survey. What I mean by a survey is they didn't just discuss one Black civilization. They discussed multiple civilizations in Africa, Europe, and Asia. So these were very important works, and they were authoritative texts. By 1883, Africological researchers began to publish books on African American history. C.W. Williams, 1883, wrote the first textbook on African American history. In the history of the Negro race in America, Dr. Williams provided the schema for all future Africological history textbooks. Dr. Williams, 1883, confirmed the classical traditions for Blacks, founding civilizations in both Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, and West Asia. In addition to confirming the ancient model of history, Dr. Williams also mentioned the presence of Blacks in Indochina and the Malay Peninsula. Dr. Williams was trained at Howard University, and I think he also went to Harvard. C.L. Perry, a decade later, R.L. Perry also presented evidence to confirm the classical traditions of Blacks found in Egypt, Greece, and the Mesopotamian civilization. He also provided empirical evidence for the role of Blacks in Phoenicia, thus increasing the scope of the Afrocentric ancient history paradigms. Pauline E. Hopkins. Pauline E. Hopkins added further articulation of the Afrocentric history paradigms through her application of these paradigms and understanding the roles of Blacks in West Asia and Africa. Hopkins provided further confirmation of the role of Blacks in Southeast Asia and expanded the scope of Africological research to China. Yes. Pauline Hopkins, the researcher she was doing. Now we have a great sister today, JP, who's doing research in terms of people, Black people in Southeast Asia. You go, girl. This review of the 19th century Africological social scientific research indicate confirmation of the ancient model for the early history of Blacks. We also see a movement away from self-published Africological research and publication of research and the publication of research articles on Afrocentric themes and the publication of Afrocentric textbooks. We can use the taxonomies of educational philosophies to discuss any proposed Afrocentric curriculum, because both education and philosophy are cultural experiences. Moreover, because Afrocentrists seek to explain and delineate the study of African people, it clearly is a field of study which encompasses all aspects of the culture of Blacks and African people, wherever they are. The Africological study of ancient history will begin with the perennialists. The perennial list would include people like, Martin Delaney, uh, Frederick Douglass, and others. The perennialists focus the ideas that have lasted over centuries. They believe the ideas are as relevant and meaningful today as when they were written. The perennialist Afrocentrics study the great works. The adherents of this school include Martin Delaney, Cornish and Rushroom, Frederick Douglass, and Edward Blyden. These Afrocentrists see knowledge as truth, which is eternal. The Essentialists Afrocentric school emphasized in their writings data that is well established through scientific research. Afrocentrists of this philosophical school include W.B. Du Bois, John Jackson, Clyde Ahmed Winters, Leo Hansberry. They believe that as new research is published, it should be analyzed to discover how it relates to the ancient history of African and Black people to enrich our understanding of the past. So these would people who would be considered essentialists, Afrocentric researchers. W.B. Du Bois. Moreover, Burnell did not initiate any second wave of Negro Black-centric study for ancient Egyptian civilization. Credit for this social science push is none other than Sheikh Anta Diop, who makes it clear that he was influenced by Du Bois. Yes. I bet many of you didn't know that the Sheikh Anta Diop, who we talk about a lot, that he mainly, in a sense, learned or began to research African and Black civilization based upon the work of W.B. Du Bois. Because the W.B. Du Bois, in his book, The World in Africa and the Negro, these books, in a sense, were the first books that really discussed the world history of Black people, see? But see, that's why you had to do research. That's why you had to look and you had to find out what are the roots of any field of study, any discipline. It was Du Bois who founded Black Negro studies, especially Afro-American studies. Given his work on the slave trade and sociological and historical studies of foundational Black Americans, he mentions in The World in Africa about the Jews and other Europeans who were attempting to take over the field. Yes. This is nothing new, because even as early as the early 1900s, 1920s, already in a sense, Jews and other Europeans were trying to take over the study of our history, you see, so that they could, in a sense, curate it in a way that it could maybe keep us from not really understanding what a rich history we have. Leo Hansberry. There's no one who can deny the fact that Leo Hansberry founded African studies in the U.S. Yes, he did. Not the Jews. Hansberry was a professor at Howard University. Kaba Khamenei, he wrote a very, very good book on William Leo Hansberry. And his book is called Honoring Professor William Leo Hansberry. And Leo Hansberry, he's the one who started, he started African studies in America. Well, it didn't start at no white university. It started at Howard University, and African studies was led by William Leo Hansberry. Africological studies of ancient history, the existentialists. The existentialist Afrocentrists believe that Africological studies should thrive to teach foundational Black people to know more about themselves so we can have a better world. The Afrocentric existentialists include Jay Rogers, Anta Diop, C.M. James, Marcus Garvey, and A.A. Schomburg. Drusilla D. Houston of the state of Oklahoma. Houston's major work was the book Wonderful Ethiopians of the Ancient Kushite Empire. In this book, she shows that the civilizations of Southern Arabia, Greece, India, and Persia were founded by Africans from the Nile Valley and beyond. Houston had hoped to write another volume of this book, but she died before it was completed. Yes, as you can see, we didn't just have foundational Black American men writing our history. We also had, women. And these are books like her Wonderful Ethiopians of the Ancient Kushite Empire. You should read this because it's a good book, and it can be complemented by many of the books that I've written that confirm what she was. See, as a falsificationist, what I've done is that I've tried to, in a sense, go and look at all the research that the Afrocentric scholar heroes. I look at their research and I've tried to confirm it by using modern or contemporary anthropological, linguistic, historical, and other sources of information to show the validity or to confirm. See, in research, as a falsificationist, I can't say that you can prove anything, because see, they teach you in a sense that the only place where proof is accepted is in a court of law, and even in a court of law, proof is in a sense determined by the judge. But what we can do is this. What we do know is this, is that you can confirm or disconfirm research. Confirm means in a sense that you find studies that say, aha, that research you did, yeah, I can say it's confirmed. You are right at this time. Or you can say that research that somebody's done can be disconfirmed. Well, a new researcher shows that what you thought was going on really didn't happen, you see. Carter G. Woodson, following Du Bois, legitimized the writing of African history in his premier books on Africa. Woodson illuminates the civilization of Africa and the rich cultural heritage of African people. Woodson is also credited with founding the Journal of Negro History, which published numerous articles on African history. Back in the day, the Journal of Negro History used to publish articles about Black history everywhere. Now it's controlled by some boule people, and all they talk about is that the only history that they publish in the journal now is history about slavery and all that type of bullshit. So again, in a sense, we have these revisionists today, these people who really hate our history, hate our culture, and they want to follow, in a sense, the academic curriculum developed by the Eurocentrists or the white supremacists. So then, therefore, they did spend their time talking about slavery. Crazy. Ben Yakhanan, an historian and cultural anthropologist. His major works are Black Men on the Nile, African Origin of the Major Western Religions, and African Mother Western Civilization. And these books, Ben Yakhanan provides the reader with a wealth of information on the African origin of Egypt and the African influence on many common civilizing elements found in Western societies today. Yes. Jackson's most popular book is his Introduction to African Civilization. Yes, the books of Jackson used old and new sources to discuss the roles of Blacks in civilizations around the world. John George Jackson's most popular book is An Introduction to African Civilization. In this book, Jackson used old and new sources, and this, you got to get his books. You got to get the books of John G. Jackson. His Ethiopian Origin of the Civilization it has so much. It's an overview of anthropological theories that I think, in a sense, that you would find that is a masterpiece in terms of understanding the whole idea of how to look at anthropology. You see, in general, Diop calls an anthropological social scientific revolution, because he was able to prove that Egypt was the archetypical civilization for many West Africans. This was an important discovery because almost all of the slaves that were sold in the United States had originally come from West Africa. Yes. And because Diop was able to show the relationship between ancient Egyptian Meta Neter and the various West African languages, that shows that many of the Black people who were kidnapped and who were, in a sense, made POWs and sold as slaves in the Americas, having really our ancestry goes back to ancient Egypt. See, they don't want you to know that. Europeans don't want you to know that. Verification of the Egyptian origin of West Africans provided African Americans, foundational Black Americans, with a relationship to the ancient Egyptians. Moreover, Diop's use of linguistics and anthropological evidence to confirm the African origin of Egypt eliminated the need for anthropological research to use classical writers to provide the African origin of Egypt. You see, under Diop, he used, in a sense, primary sources to show, in a sense, that there was a relationship. He didn't just depend on what the ancient Greeks or Romans said. Dr. Asante, yes. No matter what you say, Dr. Asante, he is the man. The final Afrocentric philosophical school is the Progressivist. The Afrocentric school of Progressivism believes that we should have knowledge of the process and futuristic focus on Afrocentric studies. The major exponent of this frame of reference is Molefi K. Asante. Dr. Asante is one of the few remaining Afrocentric scholars. He has trained many Afro-Americans who are teaching African-centered classes around the country. Yes, Dr. Asante is still the man. He is the man. He's still a fighter. You know, he back in, I remember when David Imhotep may rest in power, when he was working on his PhD, it was Malife Asante who told him to contact me so I could be his advisor on his dissertation committee. And you know, that's how Dr. David Imhotep met me, and that's how we worked together so we could get him to earn his PhD, and later going to write some of the very good books that he's written on ancient America. You know, so again, W.E.B. Du Bois, he's the Imhotep. He's the Imhotep of foundational Black American social science. He's written books on the suppression of the African slave trade, the gift of Black folks, the world of Africa, color and democracy, the Negro dusted down. This man, he is our Imhotep. He's the Imhotep Foundation of Black American Research. Neely Fuller, he's written the code. You know, he's made it clear that we're prisoners of war, and he says that we're victims of racism from 10 themes, 10 activities. He's made it clear that, number one, we should stop snitching, we should stop name calling, we should stop cursing, we should stop gossiping, we should stop robbing, we should stop fighting, we should stop killing, we should stop squabbling. We have to, in a sense, understand that the purpose for the study of history, according to Neely Fuller, is to find out not how great we were, but is to find out why we're in the condition we're in today. This is one of the greatest and most important researcher in relationship to foundational Black Americans, because he taught us the code. Education, again, the rationale for thinking. Again, in a sense, if you're going to look it up, if you want to think about our rationale for teaching Afrocentric studies, you have to look at who? Dr. Malefi Kete Asante. His books, The Afrocentric Idea, his books on Afrocentricity, you should read these books. You should know these books, because these books can give you a firm understanding of the theoretical basis of this whole idea of being an African people and how we can be one. In education, Carl G. Woodson, he wrote a book called The Miseducation of the Negro. In this book, he teaches us why we teach. He teaches us what to teach, and he teaches us the role of the teacher in enriching the cultural values of foundational Black American children. I've also written a lot on education. If you get my book, Dr. Clyde Winters, the brain-based learning and special education, what I try to do in that is I try to teach you, I try to show you various strategies that you can use to help children to learn. I also wrote a book called, How to Teach Social Studies, and it's Common Core State Standards and Social Science. In this book, I tell you how to use computers, how to, in a sense, to incorporate various aspects of the World Wide Web to instruct people. Again, these books are aimed at telling you how to teach and how we learn. And also in terms of education, you might want to teach, in a sense, you might want to get my book, The History of Blacks in Ancient America, from prehistory 1877. It tells you how to teach, it tells you what to teach, and it tells you the role of the teacher. Also, my book on the on teaching ancient Kushite history is also a very important book that you can use in terms of education. If you're going to look for the historical curriculum, it's already been established. Amos Wilson in The Falsification of African Consciousness makes it clear that history maintains white supremacy, so we should fight it. He allows us to understand that every course in the school should stimulate the study of ancient white Europeans and how they try to take away our history. And we should ensure, in a sense, teaching a history that ensures the survival of African people, that gives us a sense of wholeness, and it understands, and we learn to teach our people that there's a relationship between history and economic power. In linguistics, of course, we have Lorenzo Dow Turner. He did a very good book on Africanisms in the Gullah dialect. And of course, Geneva Smitherson, she's written a lot of books on Ebonics, and she talks about our natural language. She explains how the language that foundational Black Americans have is a legitimate language. Not only is it a legitimate language, it has, in a sense, she proves that we have in a sense, an American vocabulary, but the grammar and how we produce words, how we produce sounds is based upon, in a sense, our African ancestry. Anti-Diop, he's the number one linguist. What he's done is that he allows us to really compare ancient and modern languages. He wrote in his he talked about, in a sense, the continuity of African and Dravidian languages, and I call it the linguistic continuity theory. I wrote an article on that years ago. You see, and what he found is that the rate at which languages change is variable. It appears that linguistics change is culture specific. Consequently, the social organization and political culture of a particular speech community can influence the speed at which languages change. And this is very important, you see. Based on the history of language change in Europe, most linguists believe that the rate of change for all languages is both rapid and constant, you see. The idea that all languages change rapidly is not valid for all the world's languages. It's not valid for Dravidian languages, and it's not valid, in a sense, for African languages. The political stability of African and Dravidian political institutions has caused languages to change very slowly in Africa. Pauli and Ross argue that a sedentary lifestyle may account for the conservative nature of language that was noted by Anti-Diop. Okay, comparative linguistics. This has been my specialty. I've written a lot of articles on the proto-language. The proto-language is the mother language. The mother language that our that contemporary African and Dravidian words. I did a lot of research on the Proto-Dravidian terms for cattle, the Proto-Dravidian terms for horse, all type of stuff. So what I've been trying to do is to really be able to teach the antiquity of a language, you have to be able to develop the proto-languages. So I did a lot of research in proto-language development. If you want to find some of this information, a lot of it is in articles that I published, or you can find, if you want to get an easy source for some of this stuff, is get my book, The Egyptian Language, The Mountains and the Moon, and the Niger-Congo languages. Okay, if you want to learn about anthropology, you're going to have to get the work of God and Civilization by John G. Jackson, and you got to get Barbarism by Anti-Diop. It's an authentic anthropology. These people, in a sense, can give you the information on how to study anthropology. For political science, the greatest political scientist has to be Howard Cruz. And Harold Cruz. Harold Cruz, he wrote The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual, and he also wrote Rebellion or Revolution. These are important books. But Howard Bratz, he's edited a number of books. For example, his African American Social and Political Thought, 1850 and 1920. What makes that book very good is that it has some of the speeches and articles or writings of many of the black politicians during the period. He's edited a couple of other books too. That's Howard Bratz. So check it out. But again, if you want to learn about the politics of black people, get these books: The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual and Rebellion and Revolution, both by Harold Cruz. Check them out. If you're interested, in a sense, on psychiatry, you definitely want to read the research of Richard King. Richard King, he's written a lot on psychiatry, and especially he's written a lot on melanin, melanin, the key to freedom. And then and he's also, in a sense, talked about, biological psychiatry. Get his books. We have scholars who have been working in every area. But you wouldn't believe that. You wouldn't believe that we have the curriculum like this if you just went out what Europeans say. They act as though we don't have scholars. But yes, we have these many scholars, If you want to, another great book that deals with psychiatry is, of course, the work of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Her ICES papers. These are the keys to the colors, and she explains, in a sense, why, in a sense, the relationship between Europeans and Black people is somewhat complicated. So again, she's the expert on psychiatry. Dr. Patricia Newton, she's written some pretty good stuff on psychiatry. Like her book, Early Sexual Trauma you know, it's kind of interesting because she integrates African spirituality into Black mental health. So you may want to check out some of the work of Patricia Newton. Okay, again, in terms of psychologists, best psychologist, again, Amos Wilson. And then also Frantz Fanon. Frantz Fanon, he wrote Black Skin, White Mask, A Dying Colonialism, The Wretched of the Earth. And he in his research, he wrote about the contradictions of being a Black person in white society. If you read the work of Frantz Fanon, it can help you to understand your situation and who you are. Many of us in the 1970s, we studied Frantz Fanon because Frantz Fanon, he looked at Black people from the perspective of being, in a sense, colonized. And for those of us who grew up in the 60s in the ghettos in the United States, we felt in a sense that the way they treated us in the ghettos was almost like you treat people in a colonial, in a colony. And so we could see by reading Black Skin, White Mask by Frantz Fanon and some of his other work, we could see how this work related to us, and it made us understand better our condition. Okay, and then of course Dr. Joy DeGruy, you got to get her work. You know, post-traumatic slave syndrome. You got to get her work. Dr. DeGruy addresses the residual impacts of trauma on African descendants in the Americas. You know, post-traumatic slave syndrome (PTSS) lays the groundwork for understanding how the past has influenced the present and opens up the discussion of how we can eliminate non-productive attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors, and we develop to cope and survive the traumatic periods of capture, transport. You got to get this book. Okay, this is it. What am I saying? What I'm saying is that you got to let the researcher do the research. See, until tonight, you didn't even know that we have a curriculum, that we have scholars who've done so much good research that we could take this research today and we can learn about who we are. See, you don't have to look at TV and wait for Netflix to do a documentary. We've got the researchers out there. We've got these Afrocentric, history scholars and Afrocentric social scientists, Afrocentric medical people, psychologists. The researchers are out there, but you got to understand, you got to let the researcher do the research. That's why I teach my research course. I teach my research course so we can make more and more researchers to examine our culture. The last major confirmationist of Afrocentric is me, Clyde Ahmed Winters. You see, what I've done is that I've expanded our understanding of the role of Black Africans in Indochina, India, and China, and the ancient literacy of Blacks. Dr. Winters is a graduate of the University of Illinois, Urbana, where he earned a BA and master's degree. He earned his PhD at Loyola University, Chicago. In my book, Pathfinder, Clyde Winters in Search of the Roots of Afrocentrism, a memoir, I explain to you how I became the researcher who I am today. This book tells you the trials and tribulations. It explains how when I was 10 years old, I decided I was going to be doing this research. If you want to find out more about my research, you can go to Google. You can go to Google Scholar. If you go to Google Scholar, they're going to put up Clyde Winters. And what do we find in Google Scholar? We find in the sense that there's over 1,568 citations of my work. Yes. And since 2019, it's been over 148 citations in my articles and books. Yes. This is about research at Google Scholar. I look at teaching FBA art history through the use of various media to encourage the elimination of CAIDS, culturally acquired identity immune deficiency syndrome, by using not only books and articles, but also the World Wide Web. I have about 5 websites. Yes, there's 5 websites. You can go to omec98.net and you can see this gives you, in a sense, various historical links. Another one of my websites, other websites I've done is Equesi's Afrocentric homepage, Clyde Winters Archaeogenetic Studies, the History Notebook radio series that I hosted back a few years ago. You can get in Kubo's Afrocentric homepage and the Afrocentric World. If you go to my main web page, which is omec98.net, you will find links to these other pages on the web. This is from the Equesi page. excuse me, I talk about meroitic, decipherment, and cuneiform, and other things. Here you can see my genetic, my site where I have all my archaeogenetic artists, for example, public understanding of ancient Egyptian, the formation of Dalits and Afro-American identities, the Kushite spread of haplogroup R1N173, African millets carried to India by Dravidian speakers. You know, the Fulani are not from the Middle East, high level of divergence across Indian population, 9BP and the relationship between African and Dravidian speakers, Y chromosome evidence for African origin. So, you know, so then if you're interested in my research on archaeogenetics, go to this page. You know, in addition to that, I did the Afro History Notebook radio series. This is a good site too, you see, and it's important. And this is the site that I have where I've done, this is called clyde.winners.tripod.com/JuneZine. And here you can find information on the Black Greeks, the ancient Lipico writing, and stuff like that. In addition, I've also got blog pages. Yes, I've got blog pages. One of my blog pages is https://historyccss.blogspot.com. This is where I have a common core state standards in social studies. Here you can find various lessons. Yes, parents. Here, teachers and parents, they can find, in a sense, various suggestions on how to teach various aspects of our history, how to homeschool your children. They've got lessons on how to use videos. So this is a page, and this is one of my blog spots. My other blog spot is called Ancient African Writing Systems and Knowledge. This is called bafsudralam.blogspot.com. And here, I basically, in a sense, I basically discuss the latest research in terms of writing systems, genetics, and stuff like that. In addition to this, if you go to Amazon.com, not Amazon.com, if you go to Academia EDU, if you go to my webpage at Academia EDU, you'll find that I have there about what I have I've listed 220 papers there. You know, I have 1,938 followers. I have, people have read my articles there, 114,344. That's, in a sense, those are my papers that are on Academia EDU. So that's omec98.academia.edu/C Winters. I also have other papers that you can go to ResearchGate. Yes. I have other papers on at ResearchGate, and at ResearchGate, you know, it lists about some of my papers. At ResearchGate, I mainly have my papers I've done on the criminal justice system, genetics, and stuff like that. So as you can see, I'm all over the web. So if people want to really learn about our history, you know, you can learn about it. You know, I've written extensively books on Blacks in ancient Asia. My book on Before Egypt, the Moccan Federation. My book, The Egyptian Language. These are books, in a sense, that can provide you with the genetic, linguistic, and archaeological evidence relating to the diverse Niger-Congo speakers and how these languages spoken in West Africa are related, in a sense, to in a sense, ancient Egyptian. And naturally, if you want to learn more about ancient America, get Leo Viner's book, Africa and Discovering America. My books are on the Ancient Americas, African Empires in Ancient America, and Atlantis and Mexico. Check it out. You know, and then my book on the Olmec language and literature. These are books that can help you to learn about this, you see. And I also deciphered Meroitic. And these are some of the books that I've deciphered in relationship to Meroitic. And as you can see, this is what, about 5-6 books. And these books will help you to learn how to read Meroitic. And Meroitic is a language that was used by the people who were the founders of the civilization in ancient Kush. Then I wrote a book on ancient Blacks of China. And then I wrote a book on ancient African history, primer, and the Kushites, who, what, when, where. Get these books so you can learn more about it. And I also wrote a book called The Phylogeography of Afro-American and Africans. And this phylogeography discusses, in a sense, the genetic characteristics of Black and African people. You see, why does everyone hate Afro-American men? They hate us because we're researchers. We wanted to end the European hegemony of ancient history writing. Afro-Americans are indigenous to America. Because FBAs are indigenous to America, this makes a lot of people jealous because they don't understand our uniqueness. But what makes us unique is that we're, in a sense, we're the products of prisoners of war that were Aboriginal Black people, prisoners of war that were the Black Irish who were shipped over here. Prisoners of war that came from sub-Saharan Africa. Because of the fact that you got all these different people, we had the Black Irish, we had the Aboriginals, we had the sub-Saharan Africans. And what did this do? What this did, this led to, in a sense, an ethnogenesis, where we turned into the new Egyptians. Yes! Foundational Black Americans are the new Egyptians. Look at what we contribute to history, science, music, everything, you see. Afrocentrism destroyed a myth. Europeans can no longer claim that Black and African people do not have a history. These books will further your knowledge of Afrocentrism. In summary, anthropology, archaeology, and linguistic research is used to confirm the historical evidence of Blacks in ancient history. Generally, we can define Afrocentrism as the study of history, anthropology, and etc., from a perspective that centers research on the African actors involved in the areas of research under study. Yes. Come on, like Yoshimad. Yoshimad made this. You got to be B1 Black first. Let the researcher do the research. That's why we need more researchers. Take my course. You see? Again, go to my Patreon to see the slides. All of these slides are going to be in my Patreon. Join my Patreon so you can get the slides and get a more close-up view to these various slides. You can contact me on Twitter at Dr. ClydeWinters8. You can follow me at TikTok.com at ClydeWinters3. And you to view my shorts. I think it's about I think my shorts on YouTube have been viewed a million times, I think. And then I've got other shorts on my YouTube channel that you're on now. Right now, take a minute, subscribe, push that like button. Come on, push that like button. Subscribe, ring that bell so you know whenever I'm doing any other presentations. You can order my books at Amazon.com. Get my book, History and Culture of the Black Aboriginals in America. It's the only book that tells the history of Black people. Every other book that talks about Black Indians, they always say that we were their slaves. No, we were the Aboriginal people. We are the indigenous people of the United States. Don't forget, you can join my we're going to have a British history class. This is part 2. And the link for the course is at https://sistershanice.gumroad.com/L/FUPFU. And then, if you want to get the discount code where you can save $50 taking the course, you can go to https://sistershanice.gumroad.com/L/FUPFU/early bird. That'll save you $50 if you join the course before April 29th. Okay, and then don't forget my Afrocentric research history course. It starts April 16th. It's going to be from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can, if you want to pay the full price at one time, you go to Clyde98.gumroad.com/L/ZBWRJR. But if you want to pay over a 3-month period, or you pay a third of the amount, over a 3-month period, you can go to Clyde98.gumroad.com/L/OLZBX, So let the researcher do the research, Okay. Again, in a sense, is that a lot of the research and a lot of the stuff that we've been doing has been supported by Yoshimad. And Yoshimad, how you doing, Bob? Bob Wareham, Horace Corbin, and Mr. Sharp. What up, though? And Yoshimad has done a lot in terms of trying to help present a lot of things that I do. He's a great guy, and he has a lot of services that I think that you should maybe check out. And a good thing to check out is some of the things that he's doing in terms of trying to help our children learn. For example, check this out.
Hey B1 family, I'm excited to tell you about something super special and educational. This Black History Month, Yoshimon has created an amazing collection of PDFs all about incredible Black inventors and their amazing achievements. Do you know about Mae Jemison, the first FBA woman astronaut? Or Percy Julian, who made groundbreaking discoveries in chemistry? These are just a couple of the amazing people you'll learn about in these PDFs. These PDFs are perfect for teachers, homeschooling parents, or anyone who loves learning. They're filled with fun facts and inspiring stories that make learning about Black history exciting. Only $3 for a journey through history with some of the most influential Black inventors and scientists. Just click the link in the description to grab your copies from Yoshimod's Gumroad store. And don't forget to check out Yoshimod's other amazing creations and music on Spotify. Let's learn, have fun, and celebrate Black history together.
That material can be very effective in terms of helping your children learn, about some contemporary Black heroes. And because Usman Dan Fodio, he was an educator, mujahideen, and he said that the best way for kids, in a sense, to learn their history and to have a positive view and good self-esteem was for them, in a sense, to learn about great people who are successful. And by teaching our children about people who are successful, it lets them know. So you got to understand, you'll be surprised. So many of our children are being abused in these schools. They're not being taught who and what they are. But when you're able, in a sense, to teach them about people who love themselves, love being Black, want to be successful, what that does is that allows them to see that they can have hope to accomplish things. But again, Yoshimon can also help you with your websites and other things. Let's look at what other services he offers.
At Yoshimon Productions, we're here to take your brand and creativity to new heights. From EPKs to AI commercials, animated music commercials to animated AI bios, book covers to picture flyers, and so much more, we've got you covered. Our team is dedicated to delivering high-quality, cutting-edge designs that leave a lasting impression. And for our valued clients, we offer exceptional creativity, a customer-centric approach, and work that reflects the latest trends and technologies. Just about making art, we're about creating experiences. Your brand, your vision, our artistry. Professionalism and reliability are the cornerstones of everything we do. We're more than a service, we're your creative partners. If you're ready to make your brand shine, look no further than Yoshimon Productions. Join us in the journey of creativity. Contact us today and let's make your vision a reality.
Thank you guys for showing up tonight. And again, I hope you get a better understanding of how these institutions are out there to take away our history. They're out here, in a sense, to make us believe that we don't have a history. But we do have a good history, and we do have, in a sense, many good researchers who've written positive books about us. And we can really understand. I was thinking about teaching a course, and I used to want to teach a course on education when I was at Governor State. How you doing? Let's talk to. What up, though, Q? And I was thinking about teaching a course, but what I found, in a sense, is that many of the works that Black people have written in the past 20 years, a lot of those works they don't really reflect our culture. They don't really reflect our culture, in a sense, because of the fact, in a sense, that they're written from a white perspective, and many of the people who wrote these books, in a sense, come from that perspective. Bob Wavering asked, "Were you a friend of Ivan Van Sotomayor?" Yeah, me and Ivan, we were. We both began the Journal of African Civilization, and I was a co-editor. But me and Ivan, we had kind of an well, what happened is that this guy named Barry Feld, he called himself deciphering various ancient writings. But the so-called ancient writings that he said he was deciphering, I had already published an article in 1977, and so then I learned from so me and Ivan, we kind of moved into separate places. And so, Alexander von Woodnall, he had told me that Barry Fell had told Ivan that Ivan had to choose either to be my friend or to be Barry Fell's friend, and Ivan chose to be the white man's friend. So that's just the way it is, But again, yes, I knew Ivan Van Sertima. We started the Journal of African Civilization. Many people don't know that those books that were published, and those books that Ivan Van Sertima published, they weren't really books in a way. They were really the journals, but he made the journals in a book form, and he just edited them. That's why when people tried to contact him, and in the early 1990s, and they were attacking Afrocentrism, that's one of the reasons why Van Sertima couldn't really support a lot of his research. His research on the on ancient Americans, that was good. He could verify that. But but when they asked him questions like how can you prove that Socrates was black and all that type of stuff, he couldn't support it. And then, in a sense, the New York Times, Newsweek, Time Magazine, all these publications, claimed he was a charlatan because he couldn't support the work. But people didn't understand. He couldn't really talk about the work because he was just an editor of those various publications. So they would have had to ask the researchers who wrote the articles, you see. Okay, it's after 9 o'clock. Were there any questions? If you got a question, you can put it in the chat and I'll try to see if I can answer it. But I hope that I tried to cover as much as possible to various aspects of Afrocentrism. And see, a lot of people often say, Dr. Winters, what books would you recommend that I study to really understand about foundational Black Americans? That's why I went through those various researchers. I went through some of their work. I tried to show you what they talked about. And so then if you're really interested in having these resources, I think that you could, again, look at this video and slow it down, take some notes, and then you can go and you can find those resources, and you can, in a sense, get a better understanding of our great history, how to interpret our culture, and understand that we do have scholars who worked on the psychiatry, the psychology, the linguistics, the history, the anthropology, and that's it. And Karen, thank you. That's what I wanted to do. That's why I'm having this special show tonight. Karen Van Zen says, great information. Thank you again, Dr. Winters. Yes, thank you, because as I said, I want to share this information with you guys because this is how we learn. This is how we know. And again, those of you out there who haven't pressed that like button yet, come on now. Let's take that mouse and just go ahead and just press it. And then at the same time you press the like, subscribe. And then after you subscribe, make sure to ring that bell so that you can find information. That information will come to you, and you'll know when I'm about to do another presentation. Okay, so I don't really see any questions in the chat, and okay, JP said I'm currently reading C.A. Diop's African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality. It's a good book. It's a good book. It can help you understand where he's coming from, And then JP, so many great scholars. I have to get some of the books, especially Pauline Hopkins on Southeast Asia. Yes, she mentions it, but again, like I said, I'm glad that you've been doing some research in that area too. And I can't imagine what you're going to do in the future, JP, because it's always good, And then Black Lyron said, so many authors. We have a rich history. Yes, we do have a rich history. We do have a lot of scholars out there, and these are real scholars. But they're not going to promote these scholars. What they're going to do is they're going to mainly talk about Gates at Harvard University. And Gates at Harvard University, he's a literature professor. You see, what they did is that many of the earliest people who in a sense headed Black studies departments, they usually got somebody who was in English literature. Asante, I think he was in literature too, but Asante has done a lot of extra research. But Gates at Harvard, all he's done, he's just become a regurgitator. Europeans have used him as a front man to try to, in a sense, sell us various theories and stuff, you see. But again, the slides are in my Patreon. And if you join my Patreon, you can download the slides. So you can have them, so you can have copies of them that you can look at any time. Go back and please review the video and take some notes and see how you can use this to help you to understand further our history, our culture, and our civilization. And remember, in a sense, my research course is going to start April 16th. You see, if you want to join the course, join it. At least I usually let people in at least up to the first week. After the first week, I think we're moving too fast, and then I try to cut it off. But the thing is that if you're interested in becoming a researcher, if you're interested on elaborating on research ideas that you have, join my class. You see, and it can be helpful for you. Again, thank you for joining me tonight. You guys have a great evening and good night. Bye. So long.